This story begins by showing a parkour competition between two teams in the ruins of an abandoned building in Tokyo. Competition held by Tokyo's young people is known as Battlecore Tokyo. Unlike parkour competitions, which are usually conducted in various city-building obstacles that are still feasible, this game is held on mossy building ruins and in the middle of floods or puddles. Any member of the parkour team who falls into a puddle will be declared dead. Only the remaining team members can continue the game to the finish line. Each parkour team consists of 5 runners who will compete from the start line to the finish line, where the team flying the finish flag will first be declared the winner. There are no special rules in the game because they need to run as fast as possible and cross various obstacles to get to the finish line. In this Battlecore competition, the teams that compete are the Blue Blaze and the Undertaker. The Blue Blaze squad is one of the top teams that dominate wins in the Battlecore competition. In fact, in 42 games held so far, 37 of them have been won by the Blue Blaze team. One thing to look out for in this competition is a giant whirlpool hole that can kill anyone who falls into that whirlpool. That is why every member of the parkour team must be far from the giant whirlpool because, in the event of a fall, it will be challenging to get out safely. At that moment, one of the Blue Blaze team members, Usagi, was hanging on top of a giant whirlpool. Another Blue Blaze team member, Hibiki, moved instantly as he headed to the site to rescue him. Hibiki is a teenager with ultra-sensitive hearing loss, where he can hear all kinds of sounds around him, even sounds that come from a considerable distance. That's why Hibiki often uses headphones to cover his ears and dampen the noise. Nevertheless, Hibiki is one of the mainstay players in the Blue Blaze team. Most of the winnings made by the Blue Blaze team came from Hibiki's contribution. He is a team member who rarely communicates with other members and chooses a different path. With his speed and jumping skills, Hibiki could quickly get through every obstacle. He can reach the finish line faster than the other parkour participants. That day, for the umpteenth time, Hibiki managed to win the Battlecore match and contribute to his team's success. The next scene showed a few years ago when a major disaster in Tokyo submerged the city in high floods. Not only that, but the great tragedy has also caused the city to be trapped in a giant bubble circle surrounding the city. At that time, when the city's people were going through their daily lives, a massive explosion came from the Tokyo Tower. The blast damaged the gravity system and created a giant bubble loop that covered the city. The big bubble then released thousands of tiny bubbles that would turn into water like rain falling from the sky. Over time, thousands of those water bubbles began to fill the entire city and create massive floods. As a result, most Tokyo residents decided to move to another city and leave Tokyo in an abandoned state. But a few years later, teenagers with no parents and relatives chose to stay and live in the remains of a building in Tokyo. That's when they created the Battlecore competition to get enough groceries and money to meet their needs. The scene turns to Hibiki, who was distracted when a female Blue Blaze member, Makoto, approached him on a balcony. That night, Hibiki suddenly heard a singing voice from a woman very similar to the one he had heard at the time of the explosion a few years ago. Curious about the sound of the singing, Hibiki immediately drove a ship to the sound source, which turned out to be from the Tokyo Tower. It was quite a dangerous place because there was a giant whirlpool under the Tokyo Tower, which was also fragile. Hibiki climbed up the tower slowly to find the source of the singing. But unfortunately, he failed to jump and accidentally fell into a giant whirlpool. In that situation, he could not resist the rush of the whirlpool current and was barely sucked into the bottom of the water. Luckily, a young girl mysteriously emerged from the top of Tokyo's tower and plunged into the whirlpool to save him. Shortly before Hibiki lost consciousness, the girl pulled his body to the surface and brought him to the building. It is still unknown who the mysterious girl was and where she came from, but something strange happened when she touched Hibiki's body. Her body part was crushed when she came into contact with another human. It turned into a bubble. Shortly after, Hibiki regained consciousness. He was shocked to see the appearance of a strange girl before him. After the encounter, the Blue Blaze team leader, Shin, came to pick up Hibiki, and they both decided to take the mysterious girl with them. Upon their arrival at the base, the mysterious girl behaved strangely and wildly as if she had never understood any civilization or knowledge. The girl also rarely spoke and did not know how to communicate with others. Shin and the other Blue Blaze members decided to take care of the girl and name her after Yuta. From then on, they started teaching Yuta many basics like talking, walking correctly, and eating with cutlery. As time passed, Yuta slowly became closer to Hibiki because she spent more time with him. Hibiki, who usually preferred to be alone, let her follow him everywhere and was more tolerant of her strange attitude because he owed Yuta his life. One night, Yuta asked Makoto to read a storybook to her, and by chance, Yuta chose a storybook about mermaids and the world of the sea. After hearing the story, Yuta began to think she was a mermaid who had saved a prince, Hibiki. It also made her get closer to Hibiki and always spend time exploring with him. They even learned about the gigantic bubble phenomenon and the explosive disaster that had befallen Tokyo some time ago. They hoped that they could find a solution to the disaster. Not only did Yuta feel comfortable with Hibiki, but Hibiki himself also opened up to her and wanted to share his past with her. During this time, he never told many things about his life to others. Somehow, he felt it was okay to tell Yuta about it. He told her that at the time of the great disaster, Hibiki and his family were in the Tokyo Tower, which was the explosion's epicenter. But miraculously, he succeeded during the big explosion even though the blast killed everyone in the tower, including his family. After telling her about his life, Yuta invited Hibiki to practice parkour. Hibiki realized that Yuta had tremendous potential in parkour. She suddenly caught up to his skill set in years of parkour and could even leap past him. Hibiki, amazed by Yuta's skills, felt confident that he could trust her to become one of the members of the Blue Blaze parkour team. In the evening, members of the Undertaker's parkour team suddenly infiltrated the Blue Blaze base and kidnapped Makoto while other members were out. The Undertaker team was a parkour team that often relied on advanced technology in every battle core competition they took. Each Undertaker member had a particular shoe that could make them soar high into the air so that they could make further jumps than other participants who relied on their physical abilities. The Undertaker team also constantly broadcasted their battle core matches on social media, so they benefited from the live streaming and sponsorship they did. The Undertaker team was a team that rivaled Blue Blaze in every final round of the battle core competition. However, the Blue Blaze team was still the most potent in the battle core competition, with a very high win rate. Therefore, the Undertaker team decided to kidnap Makoto to challenge Blue Blaze to fight them with Makoto as a bet in this match. Shin and the other Blue Blaze members had no choice but to accept the challenge so they could have a chance to save Makoto. Unlike the usual games, in this one, Hibiki and the others will risk all their abilities to bring Makoto back. The following day, all members of the Blue Blaze team, including Yuta, who will participate in the game for the first time, headed to the match site. Once they arrived at the starting line and all participants were ready, the battle core match between Undertaker and Blue Blaze began. At the beginning of the game, two Blue Blaze members, Usagi and Isozaki, were defeated by Undertaker members, so the Blue Blaze team had to continue the match with 3 remaining members. Hibiki, Yuta, and Kai tried to stay focused in the competition and face the obstacles to win the game. Unfortunately, in the middle of the match, the Undertaker team again cheated by trapping them into a giant whirlpool. Given the crisis, Yuta decided to continue the game alone with her extraordinary parkour jumping skills. Yuta moved lightly and quickly as if her body was already blended with every bubble. Strangely, she sang a very familiar song in Hibiki's ear every time she jumped from one obstacle to another. The brave action carried out by Yuta sparked a fire of enthusiasm in Hibiki, so he immediately followed in Yuta's footsteps and continued the match together. Yuta and Hibiki tried to stay focused to overcome the obstacles in front of them. Everyone who saw the game live at the edge of the track felt amazed by the jumps made by them. Seeing the Blue Blaze team rise again, the Undertaker team did not stay still and immediately dropped various obstacles. Fortunately, Yuta and Hibiki crossed each barrier quickly and kept running toward the finish line. Finally, when they were almost at the finish line, Hibiki asked Yuta to hold his hand so he could throw Yuta on top of the building and win the game. Although she knew it was hazardous, Yuta willingly sacrificed her hands to save Makoto. Yuta knew that her hands would be crushed into bubbles if she came into contact with other humans, but she still made the decision. Upon Yuta's arrival at the top of the building, she pulled out the flag with her right hand and raised it into the air as a sign that the Blue Blaze team had won. In the evening after winning the game, all Blue Blaze members celebrated their victory and welcomed Makoto's return to their group. Without them noticing, Yuta chose to stay away from people and be alone on the balcony, so they didn't realize about her hand. Shortly after, she saw a black light and heard a mysterious sound from the tower asking her to return to the ocean immediately. The voice continued to overshadow her mind until she suddenly awoke after Hibiki called and gave her a necklace gift. After receiving the gift, Yuta and Hibiki were shocked by the enormous bubble of rain and dark sky. Makoto immediately checked the data of the weather detection equipment in the computer and told the other members that the possibility of a bubble rain was a sign of a bigger disaster. At the same time, Hibiki grabbed Yuta's hand, and he was surprised after learning that one of Yuta's hands had turned into a bubble. He then realized that Yuta was the creature that came from the bubble, and the bubble was angry because she did not immediately return to where she came from. While grasping the necklace of Hibiki's gift, she left Hibiki and the others, for they had known her true identity. Seeing Yuta running away, Hibiki tried to chase her and bring her back, but he suddenly fell into a puddle. Shin, who saw the incident, immediately rescued Hibiki with a buoy and brought him back to the base. However, Hibiki still could not let Yuta go, so he was determined to return to the tower to bring Yuta back. Shin and Kai realized it was perilous, given a powerful bubble storm. They tried to stop Hibiki, but he insisted on leaving. He thought he owed Yuta his life and was convinced that Yuta had made a great sacrifice for their team. Realizing they couldn't change Hibiki's mind anymore, the other Blue Blaze members decided to accompany and help Hibiki to the Tokyo Tower. After all the members were ready, Hibiki and the others hurried away to the tower even though they realized that they had to cross a challenging obstacle. Fortunately, thanks to their teamwork and parkour skills, they managed to get through every obstacle and get to the Tokyo Tower. However, upon their arrival at the place, they were shocked by the emergence of two powerful gravitational vortexes, so it would be difficult for them to climb up the tower. Shortly after, Shin suddenly appeared after them and offered to guide them up the building. Shin used to be one of the great parkour athletes, but he was forced to retire after he lost one of his legs in a game. With years of parkour leadership and experience, Shin could easily cross every obstacle and open the way for Hibiki and others. Even Shin willingly sacrificed his prosthetic legs to push Hibiki to the top of Tokyo's tower. Reaching the top of the tower, Hibiki again witnessed the shadows of the people who were there before the explosion. Hibiki saw himself as a child standing on the top of the tower with his family and other people. Before the explosion, little Hibiki had heard the sound of Yuta singing and saw a bubble approaching his hand from behind the glass. The bubble was the incarnation of Yuta, who had saved him at the time of the incredible explosion. After seeing all the shadows, Hibiki found Yuta trapped inside a bubble. A black shadow figure that resembled Yuta continued to hold Yuta's hand as if the figure did not want her to leave. However, when Yuta realized that Hibiki was trapped inside the red bubble and was trying to pick her up, Yuta let go of the black figure's hand. She then came out of her bubble and immediately rescued Hibiki from the place because the black shadow figure simultaneously created an explosion that caused the tower to collapse. Hibiki ran fast to avoid the chase of the red bubbles while continuing to hold Yuta in his arms. As a result, Yuta's body began to turn into a bubble. The bubble was then miraculously capable of destroying the red bubble and the giant bubble that had surrounded the city of Tokyo. As Hibiki took Yuta to safety, Yuta's body slowly began to disintegrate and turn into a bubble before it finally disappeared. Hibiki couldn't help but cry to see the person he loved so dearly leave while continuing to hold on to the necklace he had given to Yuta. Unexpectedly, the bubbles coming out of Yuta's body could be the solution to the bubble storm disaster that threatened Tokyo. The following day, the situation in Tokyo gradually improved, and the gravity system returned to its original state. There are no more giant whirlpools in various places, and no more bubbles that will cause flooding in the middle of the city. Hibiki and everyone in Tokyo returned to normal activities, along with construction workers who began to repair the damage in Tokyo.